Till we're all growing a beard. A man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for a beard.
Well, good morning, and we're glad you've chosen to join us. This is Behind the Beards. We're going to pull the curtain back, take a look behind the scenes, and do our best to reveal the things that you need to know about the people who are called to lead your churches and your ministries. I am Josh Fowler. I'm a preaching minister here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And joining me here on the other side of the screen is a friend, comrade, brother, Aaron Partlow. Aaron's a youth minister in the great state of Kansas, Topeka. What's going on, brother?
Not much. I'm all about brands today. I'm sporting all of my cool Behind the Beards. And recently, my wife and I took a little vacay and stopped by a great old Buc-ee's and got me a Buc-ee's coffee mug.
I always thought it was weird driving through Texas and, seeing a billboard for the cleanest bathrooms in the state. They are not lying. They are not lying.
They're not.
And there are hundreds of them as well.
It is nice to walk into a bathroom and it not smell like a bathroom. Like, that's a good thing. Okay, so true story. Lauren and I, before we moved to Topeka, we interviewed for a job in Lake Jackson, Texas. Mm-hmm. And there are two things that Lake Jackson is known for. One is for Dow corporations. So they have this giant torch out in the ocean, and it'll spit out their gases and they light it on fire. And it's just always burning. So really great for the environment if you're into that kind of stuff. But so they're known for that, but they are also known for Buc-ee's Mansion.
Really?
So the guy who created, owned, whatever, I don't know, Buc-ee's, his mansion was there. So those were their two selling points to us when we were interviewing was, hey, look at this giant flaming torch, and we're the home of Buc-ee's. They didn't have a Buc-ee's, they just had the mansion.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny stuff.
So
the Buc-ee's Mansion.
We did not take that job. After going, my wife was not so excited about moving a place where they said they have alligator delays, where you could, that it is common for an alligator to come and lay in front of your house, front of your door, and you have to shoo them away.
Yeah, we're a little removed from that here in Baton Rouge, but not too far. There's a couple folks that I visit from the church, and I've seen alligators crossing the road, heading out to their house a few times. So it's kind of crazy. There's an alligator in the road in Lake Charles, a couple days ago, where a friend of mine is working for the power company trying to get power restored out there. And they had traffic kind of slowed down and stopped because there was an alligator on the road, didn't want to leave. It was just sunbathing.
Those alligators.
Man, I know this show is Behind the Beards, but football season starts for us on Thursday.
Whoop, whoop.
Yes, I know you're super excited about that because football is your jam.
I am all about the sports and the balls and the scoring and the winning.
Well, next week I might have to be behind the mustache because we can't have beards for our official association. Come on, guys. Can't we advance into the 21st century here some way and let us wear some nicely groomed beards on the field? But
that's what I would think.
They like the professional look of the clean-shaven. Last year in August, we were out at camp. I was on the crew to work our scrimmage for our camp for the whole state. And I showed up, and I still got a beard on. We were in Monroe because I was preaching in Monroe for a friend of mine. They had a college day up there, and so I was just showing up there to guest preach for him. And when I show up for the scrimmage, my referee goes, "Hey, dude, what are you doing with the beard?" I'm like, I'm not shaving. And he goes, I said, look, I have to preach tomorrow at a church that I have never been to. And
Right.
I look foolish without a beard. He goes, man. I'm like, no, seriously. It's like, that's my job. Like, it's camp. I'm wearing a beard. And so he's like, it's not that bad. So I pulled up a picture from last season and said, here's a picture of me without a beard. He goes, yeah, keep the beard, dude. You're good.
That's hilarious. So is it it's an actual rule? Like you have to not have a facial hair, or is it just frowned upon?
No, so, the state, it's not a state law, but each individual association has their own requirements. And it's one of the requirements for the Baton Rouge Area Association.
My
so,
goodness.
The deal is if you've got a beard, you just probably won't get assigned any varsity games if you don't shave. I could do like middle school and stuff, but because they like the professionalism of being clean shaven, I guess, something like that. So
That is blows my mind how that is like super interesting.
it's kind of crazy, but I like working the games and I like the guys I work with, so I will shave.
Shave for them.
Terrible segue coming up here, okay? Terrible segue.
Right.
Where's Johnny? Right? That's the episode name here. Where's Johnny? I was thinking about this coming up, and I've thought about like so many times where we've been on the hunt for kids, whether it's
Oh yeah.
checking, check-ins, or just looking for them, trying to figure out where kids go and things like that.
Yeah, this is more we're more talking about like this idea of like kids missing or kids hiding or kids wandering off today, opposed to like the more deeper spiritual matter of, I haven't seen this kid in a long time.
Right.
Which is a good topic as well. But like we always talk about like that kind of spiritual aspect of it. But if we want to reveal the beard on this topic, there is like this stress of like being this parental figure and having to like legitimately keep track of 45, 50, even like 10 sometimes teenagers, and having that trust
Right.
that they will not be who they were yesterday, or
Yeah,
that they
no
will
doubt.
somehow change and be responsible.
Like this, it's one thing to show up back at home with the same number of kids that you left with, right? That's always the goal. But the greater goal is to show up with the same kids.
Yeah.
Not just the same number, but the same ones. I'm going to digress here for a minute. Bryce, nothing says professional like a sweet stash. My first year, I shaved and I left a mustache. And there was this guy behind the fence. I was at False River. I still remember. He followed me along the fence line the whole game. And he, berated me the whole game. He was making fun, and he just kept going back to my mustache. He's like, I think you lost that call in your mustache, dude. And so ever since then, I'm like, no, it just all comes off. Like, I got really super self-conscious about wearing a mustache. So I think beards are pretty professional anyway. So
My
Anyway.
wife hates, one, when I shave, and then two, if I even joke about leaving the mustache, it's like she won't talk to me.
yeah,
And she made that clear when we were dating too, because that's when that like part of that trend, like there's a big trend right now where you just have that big bushy mustache right now, and you go for that like really weird look. And I don't get it. Like I always like I see those people and I just want to like give them a slap and be like, stop,
doesn't work.
stop.
It just looks creepy.
Yeah. So
Now, are there some like creative ways that you've kind of kept track of kids? I think,
oh yeah.
we would take, Heather and I would take sometimes 30 or 40 kids places. And I might have help, with the driver, but that driver would often like drive them there and then leave and come back and drive them back. And it's like, all right, so somewhere in this span of time, I have to, with my wife's help, keep track of 40 kids, 37 of which are not my own. And so coming up with like creative ways. Ever think of some creative ways that you've kept track of kids?
I met somebody who used to do raffle tickets. So as they got out of the van, he would give them a raffle ticket, so he knew, like, by the tickets that he had, how many kids he had, how many should be getting back on, and then they would turn in their tickets when they would get into the van, and so he would be able to count the tickets. They did that on school buses. So, like, you know, because a van you can count, you know, you got 4, 3, 3, 3, 3, you know, so you know, like, you know, you got 12 kids in the back, or you have 13 kids in the back, and you have 2 up front. But like in a bus, like, it's a little bit harder. So yeah, so I had a guy who did raffle tickets. There's always the count off method, and all that kind of stuff. I think like the challenge comes, like one van, that's pretty easy. So like for a long time, I was a one van youth minister. And then life's pretty easy. I think when you are a 2-man, or you start to get into the bus and you get those multiple rigs, that's where, like, not only are you trusting teenagers, but you're having to trust other chaperones or adults that they're counting. I will say that I can only count like 2 times where I, being a one-van youth minister, have like left a teen, and all the other ones were when we were multi-vanned and the other driver decided not to count. And there's always the method, but this one is flawed. You know, counting as they leave the door of wherever you're at to the van.
Yeah.
You know, so you count there and they go to the van. And so you're like, okay, well, we had 35 leave and head towards the van, so we're good. We don't need to count again. Yeah. Made that mistake once. Amazing how many kids disappear between the door of the event and the van.
There's a lot of distractions in the parking lot, bro.
I had at one time, I had a teenager who went by, acknowledged that they were counted, and snuck back behind us and went to the restroom and didn't tell anybody. And it wasn't till, and this is no joke, like, I was terrified. This is, I think, the first time I ever left somebody. And they were in the other van, not mine. So again, that trust. But we were sitting at Chili's, and the waitress, snarky, was like, "Oh, you only have 39. I thought you had 40." And I went, "No, we have 40." And she was like, "No, we set out 40 chairs, and that seat's empty." And I go, "Who's not here?" I was like, "Did anyone get up and go to the restroom here?" And they're like, "No." "Who's missing?" Find out that it's one of our teens. They're back at the convention hall, and they hadn't called or texted anybody, so I called them and I said, "Go inside, find an adult and stand next to him." I said, "We'll be there in just a minute." They're like, 16 years old, so it's not like they're like a little child, but
no. But how do you not walk out and see your van gone and not call somebody and go
right? Well, and also, like, how do you not, like, why do you walk by, get counted, and then go inside and not tell anybody? Go back inside and tell anybody that you're using the restroom, or any of that kind of stuff.
But maybe this is where our history of, like, kind of pranking with our kids might kind of fall into play, right?
Yeah,
because maybe I don't call because I walk out and the vans are gone. It's like, oh yeah, they left me, because that doesn't happen. And then as time goes on, it's like, they haven't come back around yet. I don't see anybody. Who's going to be the first one to make contact here, Is this a joke or is this for real?
In my younger youth ministry days, I would never do this again, but we were playing around with one of our teenagers, and we were at Wichita Work Camp, and we got in the van, and I saw that he was talking to a girl, and I'd already told him to, like, get in the van, and he was like, and I was like, "Oh, don't you 1 minute me." So we just, like, I just left. Like, I just pulled the van, and he's like, but, like, they have a double drive-in, so I got onto the highway, and then I went around the church building and came back, and he called. He was like, "How am I supposed to get home? Where are we supposed to do? Like, what do you mean? Why'd you leave me? All this kind of stuff." And I pull around. I'm like, dude, I don't know. I think you're just gonna have to stay there, or call your parents. And I pull back around, and he sees the van, and he's like, "You suck," because he was like legit freaking out. But I was like, when I say it's time to go, it's time to go.
Yeah, so I was always a little bit OCD with those things. I would, the day before, all the kids that were going on a trip, whether it was like a youth rally or, it's like, all right, we would kind of get together, and I would say, here's what we got. We got 3 vans. There's 15 or 14 slots in each van. I had the driver in there, and whoever had to go with that one driver, I was like, there you go, fend for yourself, get your names in here, 1 name in a slot. And once the van was set, like, you're not changing. And you're not changing when we come home.
One of those guys.
Well, yeah, just because it was, so many people to keep track of.
Yeah. And
just not a lot of help doing it. And so each driver, I would make a spreadsheet, and it was like, all right, here you go. These are the kids you're responsible for. This is, when we stop, we're back on. And if there's not a check for every kid that's in your van, nobody's leaving until this.
Right.
Because I was terrified of that, right? Because like you said, there's this trust that's involved when people, and we may think it's assumed, but it's not necessarily assumed that I am going to treat them the same way that their parents would treat them. In fact, it's probably assumed that I'm not going to treat them the same way their parents. I don't have the same kind of awareness of all the things that go on, or their tendency to drift off between the door and the van.
Right.
And so when someone's giving you your children or even just themselves, there's this responsibility that they're expecting their child back in one piece, unscathed, not traumatized. And it really is one of those things that I didn't fully appreciate until I had the keys to the van and a whole bunch of kids going, do I have everybody? Did I count? I'm not sure I counted. Is it the same ones? Is it the right ones? Just one of those things that we don't think about very often. And kids, man. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think, you made a really good point there. Like, I'm not going to treat them the same way their kids are. I actually think that parents on trips are probably more laxed with their teens or their kids than, at least me, and especially you, from what you're saying, with teens. Because there's this is not my child. And so, I'm a little bit more, Sam's a teenager and he says, I want to go across the street to McDonald's instead of Burger King. I might be a little bit more lax and be like, yeah, that's fine. Like, you can do that. Like, you're a big kid.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. But one of my teens says that and I'm like, you need 3 friends, to make that work. There is more of a, there's more of a seriousness. One, because it's your job, and then 2, like, you don't want to ever be, that youth minister that, hey, lost a teen, or B, like, you love on these kids. And to be fair, like, the world's not a safe place. And so unfortunately, like, my mind goes to a dark place. Like, if we leave a teen or something, or if, and, I always count like 3 times. I count them as they leave the door. I count them when they're in the van. And then I'm in the habit now, if we're multi-vanned or whatever, that I actually, like, count my van, lock the doors, and then I go to the other van and count their van as well. Because 9 times out of 10, if we leave somebody, it's in the other van.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, yeah, we got everybody. And I'm like, okay, did you count? Yeah, we counted. But, turns out my other driver only has 9 fingers or something, and so.
Well, they have a different level of responsibility as well, a different level of ownership. There is a chaperone, but if anything happens, it comes back on my shoulders, right?
Right, yeah, buck stops with me.
And, it is, you talk about, we do live in it's a dark place at times, and my mind goes there as well. This is not on a youth trip, but Jody, my daughter, this was... And probably 2 or 3 years ago. So she was 14 or 15, and she and her friend, she's a girl. They're the same age. They wanted to go down to the levee and take pictures and just hang out. And first they said
was dry.
the levee was dry. I know. I took my Chevy there.
Wow.
She was like, "Hey, can you just drop us off downtown?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, not gonna happen." So I said, "But I will give you your space, right?" So we kind of went there, and I let the two of them kind of walk on and do their thing, and I just kind of hung around. Well, they're down there by the river on the other side of the levee, and they're just kind of taking pictures and palling around. And there's this guy who's standing up on top of the levee, and I've been behind him. And I've watched him follow them all along the levee. And they kind of go under the bridge and over, and he comes around. And so I just walked up and I said, "Hey, man, how's it going? How you doing today?" He's like, "Oh, I'm doing great." And we talked about all kinds of things and went back and forth. And after about 10 minutes, he said, he goes, "Are those your girls down there?" I said, "Yes, sir, they are." And he said,
I appreciate you following them.
"Yeah." He said, "You can't be too careful, man. There's some crazy people out there." I was like, "That's why I'm here." And he said, "All right, man, have a good day." And he left. And so I went down there and I sat by Jody and I said, "Hey," I said, I said, "You really need to be aware of your surroundings."
Yeah.
Did you see this guy that's been following you all along the levee? And she said, "What guy?" I said, "Exactly. That's why I didn't just drop you off and leave you." But so there's this fine line you draw with your kids, right? Like you want them, I want to preserve their innocence. I don't want them to walk around being skeptical and cynical about every little thing that's going to transpire.
Right.
And I told her that. I said, "Look, I'm not saying you don't have to trust people. All I'm saying is look over your shoulder every once in a while. Be aware of the people that are around you, of what's going on, so that you can judge when it's time to kind of move along, when it's time to get into a crowd, and kind of when everything's okay, Just such a challenge, and all those things go through your mind when you send kids out into a space and you can't track every single one of them. That's like kind of nerve-wracking at times.
I love it. We do Winterfest, and we go to a mall, and we let the kids. They break up into groups of 3 and 4, and go walk around the mall, and kind of do that nice public space. And they get so mad. Or even Worlds of Fun. Like we take a group to Worlds of Fun. They get so mad because every 2.5 hours, 3 hours, they have to call or meet us at a place to check in.
Right.
And they're, "Well, I don't know why we gotta do that," and they get so mad. And it's like, you not understand. Like, we're just like, we want to just keep you safe. Like it's this thing we want. We want to love on you and stuff like that. But weird segue, we talk about lock-ins quite a bit. My youth group plays night games at our winter and fall retreats and things like that. But weird places to find teenagers. Have you ever where you're legitimately I don't know where this teen is. I know they're in this building. I know they're at Tallgrass, or better yet, they've snuck out of the cabin at night. Where are the places? And I've got a good story where I think you were there, or it might have been the year after you left. But I found these two boys. But first, weird places that you found teenagers at places.
Bryce Halda, probably not listening right here today, but Bryce Halda was the best hide and go seek player in our youth group.
Nice.
Actually, he is the best hide and go seek player I have ever played hide and go seek with. That's not a whole lot of people, but still.
Yeah.
I found him.
I'm an active player.
Yeah, that's right. I found him one during one lock-in on the top bookshelf in the church library. It was like, dude, that's an awesome hiding spot. Don't get up there again.
Yeah, no joke.
I'm just envisioning the whole thing coming crashing down because it's not designed to hold 150 pounds in one place like that.
I don't know. You've seen some of those old church books.
That's probably the most bizarre place I found one of my kids up on top of the bookshelf in the library.
We one year I had a counselor come in and he just went, I don't know where these two teens are. And I was like, "What do you mean you don't know?" He's like, I don't know where they are. Like, they're just completely gone. And so we go outside. I think you were there, and we were looking, and finally, like very shortly behind the cabins, where the road actually is, I see like glow, kind of, and it was coals, is what it was. It was somebody had been burning, and there was some coals, and I go, I know where they are, and so I walk through the woods at Tallgrass, pitch black, and I find them, two good old boys, farmer boys, been working on the farm and everything. They're like, yeah, we saw these coals lit up in the distance, and we wanted to make sure that they were out. And I said, well, did you bring water? Nope. Well, how are we gonna put them out? And they both look at me and go, well, we both have to use the restroom. So, but yeah, sure enough, like they had got up. One of them had got up to go to the restroom, because we have a restroom inside the main cabin. So you have to get out of your cabin, walk through, which is not great for winter retreats if we have to use that outside, because sometimes there's snow and they have to walk through the snow to use the restroom. But he got up and saw the coals that were still hot and woke up his other buddy. Didn't wake up his counselor.
No, why would we do that?
Yeah, silly. And said, hey, get your boots on. And so in athletic shorts and boots, they were out there. Pretty far trek. And it was the neighbor's property, and I said, hey, you do know it would have to have crossed a creek, to put us in danger. Well, that's true, but you can never be too safe. And I said, yeah. So I was like, okay, well, do your business, and let's get you guys back into your cabin.
Let's get back where you belong.
Yeah, I was like, next time, please wake up your counselors.
Well, you mentioned that that Worlds of Fun trip that we used to take every year. Worlds of Fun, if you're listening and not really sure, Worlds of Fun is an amusement park in the Kansas City area. 1 year, we get ready to leave, right? We've had those check-ins. We had check-in at 11. We had lunch. We had 1:30. We had 3:30. And we'd had to lock in the night before, so our guys were spent. So at 5:30, they were ready to go home. And so everybody meets up. There is one person that doesn't show back up. They're not answering text messages. They're not answering phone calls. So, like, the last thing in the world you want to do is call mom, right? And say, so,
right, yeah.
Have you heard from Sally? Because if I'm calling mom, something's wrong, right? And then all of a sudden, this whole conversation has to transpire. And so I'm looking for all of her friends. I was like, have you seen so-and-so? And they're like, not in a while. Have you seen so-and-so? Not in a while. And so I'm like, okay. So we're walking all the way back through there. We're checking, all the lines. They're supposed to be in pairs too, right?
Right. Yeah.
I think
Always
we had
have
them.
a partner.
I think we had them that time set up in 3s or 4s. It's like you don't go anywhere without your group.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of these things are set in place. And so we searched for probably an hour and a half. And finally, I get a text message back from her. She goes, oh, my mom picked me up. I had to leave. And it's like, what? And you chose to not inform me of that? It's like, well, I knew the vans were full, so I figured you needed an extra space in there anyway. So, like, but it goes back to, hey, I think I'm helping out. But
so many years lost from my life.
That's right. Just the stress, and not only the stress of not being able to find somebody, but then the stress of going, okay, how do I initiate this phone call? Because like you said, your mind goes to the sensible thing is she probably called her mom and they came to pick her up. That's the sensible thing.
Right.
But we live in a world where too many things occur that aren't necessarily along those lines, and
along those lines, but very differently. I had I was at a church camp, and I was the director of that church camp, and I had a staff member while we were doing a group activity go back to their cabin, pack all their stuff up, and leave. And I called them and I went, hey, where are you? Your small group's looking for you. And they said to me, I just didn't really feel like this was my week to be at camp. I just don't feel like I was bringing anything to the table. And I was like, you need to let me know. And I had to like shift counselors around and put somebody in that cabin because there was nobody in that cabin now. And I mean, just one of those things where it's like, hello, you have to let people know. You have to talk to people.
Look, dude, all you do is really just throw stuff together last minute for camp anyway. There's no planning.
Yeah,
there's no
right.
intentionality behind campers and counselors and all of that, right?
Well, and that was
Easy.
kind of one of the funny things, because that particular staff member like really made sure that they had a certain group of people in their cabin as well. And so like for them to have just left, I was like, okay. But I'm a firm believer that God does not cause all things, but he uses all things.
Right.
And in that person's cabin was another counselor. It was their first year to counsel. And I was iffy about bringing them out. Like, it was one of those, like, okay, well, let's see how they do. Because I'm all about giving these people shots and chances, and we'll just work through it. And, man, they rose to the challenge. They did a phenomenal job. And they became one of those people that I was going, man, I hope that they come next year or want to counsel, because and they did, and I ended up giving them more responsibility because they had just for such a young person, they proved so much and did so well, and I was very proud of them, and I told them that at the end of the week.
Yeah, so that's one of those moments, and I'm preparing for my Wednesday night Bible class earlier this morning, and I have to think back into my life. I either don't put myself in these situations or don't allow myself to get into these situations often enough. But God works best when we find ourselves in a situation where we look out and go, all right, if God doesn't show up and do something here, I'm in trouble.
Right, yeah.
I don't have a contingency plan. I don't have a backup. I don't have a safety net. And if God doesn't show up, I don't know what I'm going to do. Sometimes I choose that path. I don't choose it often enough. Most of the time, I kind of get forced into that path and find myself having to live with that kind of faith. It is cool, man. It's cool when that shows up and people just rise to the occasion, and God says, "See, I told you, I got you," kind of a thing,
Right.
It's really cool.
My teens, if somebody asked me that question, they know I would say 4 words: Oklahoma City mission trip. If it could go wrong, it went wrong on that mission trip. But God showed up and he took care of us, and we had a phenomenal time.
Ended up going right. So before you talk about kids that have snuck out, have you ever snuck out of camp or an event?
Ooh, why do you got to go there?
I'm going there.
So yes, and it actually kind of blew up, and it just I struggle with ego, and I definitely did, like in high school, not so much like as today, probably still a little bit, but so there used to be this this retreat. I can't believe you asked this question. That's really funny. There used to be this retreat out at Camp Gam Hill called Faith Quest, and these guys make us as directors, Josh, look like child's play. Like, I mean, they put a burn on Bill Carriger having a plane fly and drop food out of a plane for the kids. I mean, they make that look like child's play. Like these guys straight up. It was a prison themed retreat that year, and so you actually got there. I stole this idea and did it with my kids here in at Tallgrass.
Yeah,
and they loved it, but because it was a great theme. But you got there and you pulled up in your van, and they told you, "Please stay in your van," and you're like, "What?" And then the youth minister was like, "I don't know." And so like we would get out one by one, and you went into this room, and they had transformed it completely into a courtroom, like completely. and they had a guy dressed up as a judge, and he was sitting way up high and above, and they judged you on your sins right then and there. And they had a prosecutor and witness, or not witnesses, but a jury, like all this kind of stuff. And so then they escorted you back into this room because they had other vans that they had taped up orange, and your shirts that year were orange jumpsuits. So they had, instead of getting shirts, they had bought everyone orange jumpsuits that you were going to put on, and then they would take you to your cabin for you to be a prisoner. Well, me being like really like big ego, and knowing that camp as well as I knew it, I knew that there was, if you got up into the rafters, you could actually go out, and there was a vent that you could kick down, and you could get outside the cabin without leaving the door. And so they brought in the last person, and I counted, and I was like, okay, there's 5 of us. I said, okay. I said, you guys got to cover for me. And I unscrewed the vent, and they screwed it back in after me, and I crawled through the air duct, and I went outside where there was the 4-wheeler that had the trailer of all the luggage of everybody. I did not know this. This is really important. I did not know that they had a cameraman on me. And he got this weird angle of shooting, because he was just shooting the building, and the window was open. And so he got this angle of me and the guys shoving me up the vent. And then he heard me come out. And so he was really far away filmed me get down. And I didn't know till the end of the week either that he was filming me. Filmed me drop out of the duct, or out of the outside vent, and crawl in to the trailer with luggage, right? And I waited there until we got to the cabin area, and they were undoing stuff. And when they pulled some luggage off and brought it inside, because it was one guy, like, I got out and I had escaped, and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't know that until like the end of the week, when they were showing the end of the camp video, and they said, and then they played this short clip of the Great Escape, and it was me like great escaping, and it was like this really like big deal. But they did a musical, Josh. Yeah, the directors of that camp, their youth group, like did a musical opener, and it was like, so they brought everybody into the lodge, and you all sat down, and they did this huge musical number. And it was probably not as good as I remember it, but at the time I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And it was really memorable. But yeah, I snuck out during that event.
I had a friend of mine and I at church camp one year. We were going to go prank the girls' cabin. Like, and I mean, there wasn't a rule that you couldn't be in the girls' cabin. The rule was, you don't go near the girls' cabins.
That's right.
You know, we had a couple rolls of toilet paper, and you know, we were going to do some cheesy little things that we like to do. And as he and I are running up to the cabin, a light comes on and someone comes out, and so we just slide face first into underneath one of the church vans. Right?
Ooh.
So we're right underneath, and we're hiding, and we're laying there, and all of a sudden, like, my face starts burning, my neck starts burning, I start feeling it all up my arms, and there is this weed in Central Texas called bull nettle. And bull nettle will get into you, and it starts itching and burning, and it creates these whelps. Well, so we wake up the next morning, and it's like, you know, someone snuck out, and we're there for kind of our morning inspection. They're like, I don't know what's going on. I got whelps. I got whelps all over my cheek and all down my neck, down my arms and legs and everything. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about, Kurt. I don't know what you're talking about, Kurt.
Awesome.
It always tells on you, man. It always tells on you.
That's funny. That's awesome.
How do you handle it though when kids sneak out, right? So you've been there, right? I mean, and you know all that goes along with the things that transpire So, I mean, how do you handle things when kids do that kind of mischief?
I know, because when I was younger, like we brought a gorilla suit to camp. Yeah, and like exactly like that, and that's my response now. And I'm like, you did what? We brought a gorilla suit to camp, and like we thought it was a good idea. And I remember this was when we were counselors, and we brought a gorilla suit to camp, and there was the cabins that we were at. They had like there's two cabins, and were conjoined by like a center room. And so my buddy had had it on, and there was a kid, and he was sitting next to the window. No screens. This is Oregon. Like, there's no screens or anything like that. The window's just open, nice cool breeze, and the kid's just sitting there playing. And my buddy has the gorilla head on, and he pops his head up, and he goes, and just like this growl or whatever. And the teen turns and screams, but none of us were ready for what happened next. His arm went back, and he just flat out clobbered this guy in the monkey suit. I mean, just flat out punched him right in the face. And you thought it was Scooby-Doo because the mask was spinning, kind of a thing. But, but we thought it was a good idea to scare kids as they were trying to go to the restroom or something. But, yeah, I probably don't handle it the best. And it depends. Like, if it's, and my kids know this, which is really good. Like, if it's a central retreat, we try to have a little bit more fun. We still be that respectful. Hey, don't go near the girls' cabins, that kind of stuff. We try to have a little bit more fun. They don't really sneak out. But if it's a tall grass thing, then it's a little bit more
stringent,
closed fist. A little bit more, yeah. I, as a man who has caught many kids sneaking out, you don't like to judge a book by a cover, but you can tell who's going to try to sneak out.
Yeah.
And I've caught many of them, or I have known that they have done it. Sometimes it's a test of integrity for me. I'll bring it up that I know who it was and I saw him do it, and I'll bring it up and they'll get to come talk to me. If they were the ones who did it, that kind of stuff. So, for me, I guess if I'm going to be really serious, it's all about relationship, right?
Right.
I mean, that's what everything is. It's all about relationship. And so, and the seriousness of it, guys sneaking out, to go look at stars on the baseball field at Tallgrass will be handled a lot differently than a guy sneaking out to make out with his girlfriend looking at stars on the baseball field.
Yeah.
Those are two very different stories.
Yeah, and one of the things
very different punishments.
Right. I try to set up, something initially because there's something about kids and boundaries. They want to push them.
Yeah.
And if you give them freedom within the bounds, like, hey, we can have fun and we can, pranks are okay, but we're not hurting people. Mm-hmm. We're not going to isolate or embarrass people. I mean, there are pranks, and then there are things that we just are not going to have any part of. And we're, in one sense, you're kind of trying to teach them how to prank and have fun without, violating someone's personal space or their own integrity or their own character, and preserving relationships. Because I can prank you in some ways that are appropriate, and I can prank you in some ways that really isolate you and push you to the fringe. So trying to teach them how to manage those things in the boundaries or in the margins of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And it's so challenging, right? It's another one of those things that you're trying to kind of walk this line between teaching and holding some authority. I've had to send kids home, not for sneaking out, but for violating other rules. And all his friends and all the other people around him are like, "Oh, you're so mean." It's like, look, he knew the rules,
right?
And he knew the consequences, and and so sometimes you do have to really draw that line and say, "I told you what happened if you went too far. I gave you some freedom, I told you what happened if you go too far with it. I told you exactly where the line was. And, you know, I don't want to send somebody home. It's not the memory I want them to have of my camp or my time with them. But, you know, sometimes you just aren't given a choice.
Winterfest is really always a great event, and I love Winterfest. I do not like the location of Winterfest now. It's in the same place, but it is now an esports arena. So talk about one of those where Johnny's moments. I had an 8th grader who, first off, their parents sent them way too much cash for this trip. Like, no kid needs $400 of cash to go to Winterfest if you're eating fast food meals. Like, he's not eating T-bone steaks. Anyway, they gave him like $400 cash. I noticed that at the start of the lesson, he got up and he said, "Hey, can I go use the restroom?" Yeah, go to the restroom and come back. And so he left, but he never came back. 10 minutes go by, 15 minutes go by. Okay, where's Johnny? Like, this is messed up. So I looked over at the other chaperone and I said, I'm going to go out and check on him. So I leave. He's not in the restroom. He's not answering his phone. And then I go, he didn't. So I walk into the esports arena area. He is sitting down playing Fortnite on his account. He had bought 2 hours worth of time to play computer games in the esports arena at Winterfest. And I go, "What are you doing?" He says, I just got really bored and I just really wanted to play some video games. I said, "Well, how much time do you have?" And he said, I paid for 2 hours. So anyway, that was like, come on, man. Like, disappear. He's out there playing Fortnite.
Jonathan just posted some of his rules for pranking. 1, don't damage property. 2, don't hurt people or break laws. Whatever you do, be okay with it being done to you. And when they get you back, smile. That's probably the most challenging one, right? Is when someone comes back, own it, smile.
Yeah. We had when I was counseling at a 3rd and 4th grade camp, the director was known and he made this serious. Kind of like would scare you a little bit, but he would go, absolutely 0 retaliation whatsoever. No hugs, no high five, because every night at campfire they would pie counselors for different reasons, and he made it 1000% like if you did any retaliation whatsoever, that you would be like in serious trouble as a counselor. And it was a little bit too much, in my opinion, but yeah, that idea of if you're gonna do it, you're gonna dish it out, then you should be able to take a little bit back.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, this has been good. Where's Johnny? Searching for kids, taking some of the little lighthearted things that are good to kind of acknowledge and recognize, but also even the lighthearted ones come with so much responsibility and so much pressure. So much pressure to get these kids home and get them home safe.
The behind the beards moment there, the review there is remember that your youth minister, your preacher, your pastor, whoever is in charge, remember that they're getting less sleep at these events than the average person because of these kind of situations. Remember that they don't maybe get to, going to Winterfest is great and I get some out of the lesson, but I'm also checking up on kids. It's not like I can just let my guard down and worship and really soak everything in, because you're worried about teenagers going off and playing Fortnite. You're worried about teenagers sneaking out at night. You're worried about these kind of things, that you have to manage and be a part of.
Yeah, that's right.
So when you go to your youth ministry and you say, "Oh, but it's just camp," like, that's easy, right?
It's work.
Rethink that thought, because it's a lot of work, and you are exhausted when you get home and when you get back. Yeah, there's a certain amount of refreshness, but there's also a certain amount of recovery time that one needs, and all that stress. We need outlets to be able to let those out. So that's your behind the beards moment at the end of that. At the end of this podcast, Any behind the beard moments that you had, Josh?
No, I like that. I like that behind the beard moment though. I'd start putting that in a little more.
We can maybe do like a video flash in.
Yeah. I'm gonna work on that for you. Okay.
When we hire our productions guy.
That's right. No, it's been good.
And if you guys are interested in getting merch at all, too bad. So I just thought I'd let you guys know that.
Oh, it's been good, bro.
Okay, but please
conversation.
Like and follow.
That's
and
right.
Subscribe. Hey, but seriously, we want to thank you guys for being here. Josh, I want to thank you for constantly being here every Tuesday. Wow, what a rock! But I want to thank you guys for being here, because we really appreciate this. We do this for you guys. We enjoy these conversations. We look forward to in a couple episodes having some guests on and share their experience. You guys probably get bored of hearing stories just from us, but we want to remind you something that we try to remind you at the end of every podcast. Galatians 6:9. Do not grow weary in doing good. And that's a big part of ministry. That's a big part of exactly what we're talking about today. And when we're searching for teenagers is that we can't grow weary in doing good. The world is messy and this life is messy. Allow Christ to use you to do something different. Do something good in his name. I'm Aaron. That's Josh. And we'll see you next week on Behind the Beards.
We're all growing a beard. A man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for a beard.